Hello everybody, it's me, extra normally, but you can call me Alan, and today I am going to hit you with a review for the Lamy Safari. What is the reason for making this video? Aren't there already plenty of reviews for the Lamy Safari out on YouTube right now? Well, before I purchased this pen, I did a lot of research for it on YouTube and through Google and whatnot, and for some reason I just couldn't find many videos of people reviewing it specifically for sketching or drawing. Mainly, it kind of just goes over the pen, but it never really shows any practical demonstration. Therefore, I wanted to make a review that provided a practical demonstration for this pen right here. And please keep in mind that I myself am a beginner artist, a self-taught beginner artist at that, so don't come here for any professional advice. This is very casual. I'm a very casual person, so that's really what I'm marketing for right here. If you want a short answer and don't feel like watching the rest of the video, my answer is yes, you should buy the Lamy Safari. But if you want to hear more in-depth opinions from myself and a practical demonstration towards the end of the video, then you might want to stick around. Alright, let's get into it. Part 1, durability. For the first part of the review, we are going to be covering the quality of the Lamy Safari. Now, as far as grip and comfort goes, it was a little uncomfortable at first. The pen has these grooves on it that sort of force you into this tripod grip. But after a while of using it, I actually found that it was very comfortable to hold it that way, and it helps you hold the pen correctly, because with a fountain pen, unlike a regular pen, you need to hold the nib sort of facing at a 45-degree angle flat on the paper in order to get the best ink flow. And that really helps with this right here. So as a beginner fountain pen, I'd say it does a very good job teaching you those skills. Now, as far as the composition of the Lamy Safari, it is very lightweight and durable. Apparently it is made out of ABS plastic, which is the same thing that Legos are made out of. Shout out to my Lego fans. So as far as the quality of it goes, it feels very nice. It's very smooth. It's just not really made of metal, so it doesn't feel premium in the way that metal does, but it has a very solid construction. And as far as the price goes, it's incredibly cheap. It's less than $30, I believe. And for transportability, it's very easy to take this wherever you want. It has a little clip on the cap here that is very snug, fits very snug in a lot of places, and the cap comes off and it has a very nice satisfying click whenever you pop it on, and there's a little seal there. I haven't had this thing bust on me yet, and I've had it in like a hot car for a little while, so I haven't had any issues with that. So as far as being able to take it wherever you want, it's very nice. I take it with my sketchbook almost anywhere I go. And concerning the nib flexibility, I'd say it has about medium flexibility. It allows you to get really thin, fine lines and some thicker lines if you want, but you won't get anything as crazy as a brush pen or a thicker Copic pen. And that concludes the section on build quality. And next we are going to talk about the ink. Now, I went for the option of just having plain black ink. I would say it has a very consistent ink flow. For me, it never skips or gets spotty with normal use. It's not until I really start doing some very quick hatching, and I'm talking a lot of hatching before it even starts to skip to run dry, and after that you just give it a little shake, hold it downward for a second, and you're back to new. The ink can also slightly pool if you are going too slow or pushing too hard. So if you have very slow, deliberate strokes, probably don't press too hard, or you will have a little bit of extra ink sitting on top of the page. Now, it will eventually soak into the page, dry up, whatever, with some time, but you have to be extra careful of that so it doesn't smudge afterwards. It's also not the best pen for doing large areas of black. Now, you can do it, it's just the way that this fountain pen is the nib is very small, and it has sort of this horizontal writing to it. So you can sit there and you can hatch, and fill in a spot with black, but it's crazy inefficient, and you'll probably have to go over it a couple of times and then wait for it to dry afterwards, unless you want to accidentally smudge it. And that's the really big thing that I would say is the biggest downside to this pen. Maybe it is just the ink that comes with it. I tend to smudge this very often because I'm very impatient, and when I'm sketching, I just tend to go for it and I forget that I have to wait for the ink to dry. Not all the time, but if you find yourself getting caught up in what you're doing, it can be very easy to accidentally smudge the ink if your hand accidentally brushes over it. The ink can also be lifted up slightly if you are into using watercolor or alcohol-based markers. I use watercolor markers, and it sort of leaches the ink out of the page, not to a terrible degree, and it doesn't make it look awful. In fact, it kind of gives it a little bit of character, in my opinion. It's just that if that's something that you're worried about, maybe try and use a different ink. These pens, I believe you can use ink converters with them, so if you have a waterproof ink that you prefer to use, you can retrofit this with that ink. I've also found that the ink can smudge if you use certain erasers on top of it. Now, I just recently switched to a little kneaded eraser, and I found that this doesn't really smudge the ink all that much. It actually does a pretty good job. You'll see in the sketch later that I use this, and I think I only get just a little bit of smudging. These little stupid things, these erasers, not perfect. These tend to smudge it a lot more often, and I believe it's because it picks up the black ink and sort of incorporates it into the gummy rubber texture of the top, and it just ends up almost dyeing your page. So I do not recommend using just a regular eraser. I would switch to a kneaded eraser, even if kneaded erasers aren't necessarily my favorite, but I think I'm going to stick with using this as long as I'm using this fountain pen. And this is very good to know, because what if you want to do an underlying pencil sketch? What if you want to block out your composition? If you don't want to just like go in gung-ho without a care in the world, what if you want to lay out some structure? Well, you can do a light pencil sketch underneath, and you can erase it afterwards and not worry about it ruining the entire drawing. All right, that concludes everything that I have to say about the ink for the Lamy Safari. Next, we are going to talk about how I use this pen in my day-to-day sketching. I use it in my Moleskine. I have also used this pen on Bristol paper, and it behaves almost exactly the same. Actually, I would say it holds up a little bit nicer with paper like this that has a little bit more tooth to it, but it's still smooth. But something like Bristol paper, it tends to sit on top of a bit more, so you have to wait a little bit longer for it to dry. And I like this pen a lot. I do use it every day. It has become my daily driver. Before I even thought about using a fountain pen, I tried these Sakura felt tip markers, which are great and dandy and all, but they tend to dry up very easily, at least for me. And if you don't store them correctly, they can also have really spotty ink flow. I keep a couple thick ones of these around just to do some fills if need be, because I don't want to use this for it. I'd say that the Lamy Safari is my #1 daily driver, followed by these Tombow brush tipped markers. I have a hard brush tip. Well, the camera's not really focusing there. I have a hard brush tip and a soft brush tip. The difference between these brush tipped pens and something like a fountain pen is that for the brush tipped pens, you're able to get varying line weight. Not that you can't with this, but it's definitely not as wide of a range as something like these here. So if I am looking to really emphasize my line weight, I will switch to these pens right here. But for the most part, I would say that this pen is perfect for just your average day-to-day sketching. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I want to try other fountain pens in the future, but this has been an excellent first pen, especially for drawing. And why is it that you would want to use a fountain pen over just a regular everyday I don't know, like a Pilot G2 or these brush pens. I'd say that a fountain pen definitely encourages you to stay very light, loose, and agile with your sketching, but you can also get very clean, precise lines, which makes it fantastic for just getting that ink down on the paper. And for me, it forces me not to care about my mistakes as much. I get hung up in perfectionism a lot, which I think a lot of artists do, and it's something that I think is very valuable to learn to break out of. All right, so that really concludes all of the technical nitty-gritty. Next, I want to show just a practical demonstration. In the practical demonstration, I am going to draw this building that is sort of off in the distance. I'm going to not use a pencil underlay. I'm kind of just going to do it very loosely. It's a loose architectural sketch. And then afterwards, after I get all of my lines down, I'm going to go over it with some watercolor markers so you can see how that interacts with the ink. And does it look good afterwards? I think it looks fine. After I do that sketch, I'm going to hop over to a portrait sketch. For this one, I am going to do a pencil underlay. So we're going to hop on over to that. I will see you at the end of the video to give you my final thoughts. All right, we're just gonna start off by drawing a little frame for the building that I'm drawing. This is just a domed building from a reference I found on Pinterest. I do not remember the name of the building. So right now I'm just basically trying to get that perspective down. It's not perfect, obviously, but I'm just trying to get those general shapes in. And then in the foreground, I am laying down some shrubbery, some trees. And then as I get my bigger shapes blocked in, I'm kind of just going in and filling in a bit more of the detail. Then here we're starting on the dome. And for the top bit here, I'm just having it poke out of the frame a little bit just because that's fun, gives it some dimensionality. Just some touch-ups. Then we're going to switch to some watercolor markers. I'm wanting to make my foreground a bit darker, and then the background a bit lighter, adding in a bit of shadows. Doesn't look too perfect because the pen obviously bleeds a little, but I think it turned out fine. So yeah, there you go. That's the finished product with the watercolor marker. And next we are going to do a portrait drawing. I'm just laying out the box here. I've been getting away from doing the Loomis method recently in full just because finding the side planes for it is very difficult for me. You can see here that I erased the mouth a couple of times because I didn't get it the way I wanted, but I settled on a shape that I liked. And here I'm just blocking out the hair, just the general shape of it, drawing a bit of the body. Then I'm going in with the pen to do all the facial features, sort of adding the hatching where I want some of my darker areas to be. Then going with the hair, adding some ruffles, adding some dimensionality. And here I'm erasing with the kneaded eraser, not a lot of smudging. And then I'm just going in with some more hatching to give some additional depth. And then I hatched the hair just because I thought it would look cool. And now we're going to draw a frame around it. I got the frame wrong, so I go in with watercolor afterwards. And yeah, that's the portrait drawing with the Lamy Safari. I hope you enjoyed that live demonstration. All right, with that out of the way, what are my final thoughts on the Lamy Safari? I love this thing. This is an amazing pen. This is a fairly cheap pen as far as pens go, and the ink cartridges for a pack of 5 was something like $5. So it's very, very, very affordable for a fountain pen. Now, what is this pen best for? I would say that it's perfect for quick sketches. It's very good to just get those lines down on the paper, but if you wanted to use it in a larger project, perhaps something that's a bit more technical, that requires a bit more time, effort, patience, I would say that there's no reason why you can't. And who is it best for? Like I said, I'm a beginner artist. I think it's really good for beginner artists who are just looking to get into fountain pens. I think it's good for people who want to get out of their comfort zone. Like I said, this encourages you to be very, very loose and agile with your strokes. And most of all, I think it's just an overall great pen for artists who want a nice, durable fountain pen that doesn't break the bank, that is incredibly fun to use, and that allows you to get the results that you want. Okay, thank you for watching. That it was my long-winded video doing a review on this pen. I hope that this convinces you, if you were on the fence about getting this for pen and ink drawing, to go ahead and just buy it. Or no, don't steal it. Don't steal stuff. That's wrong. But I I hope that you would enjoy this as much as I do, and I hope that everything that I went over today was informative and fun. I just want to be fun, you know? I'm a fun guy. I'm a fun person. I like to have fun. I like to goof off. But I can also be serious when I need to be.